Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to teach you how to make this pair of Japanese inspired apron trousers, otherwise known as the Kumo Wrap Pants. And if you are brand new over here, welcome to the channel. My name is Jack. I am the owner of Rough Cut Official, essentially an art project that I've been doing for around 10 years. The last year I've decided to make sewing patterns of some of the most coolest pieces of clothing that you see online. The goal is to try and make sewing accessible. The goal is to make it not scary at all, to make it familiar and strip away all of the rubbish tools that don't really get you anywhere in sewing. This right here is the Kumo Wrap Pants. This is a skill level 3 and I'm going to take you through the process of how to construct and finish this pair of trousers. Before I begin taking you through this process, I just wanted to tell you that I've never released a ladies pattern before. All of the patterns and all of the clothes that I make throughout the years of Rough Cut, they've always been sort of to my sample size, which is large XL in a men's size. I do a lot of workwear inspired garments. I do a lot of different bomber jackets and all them different jackets that you can see around my studio, but I've never done a ladies pattern, so I think this is perfect. The sizing within this is right here. These are all the measurements and these translate to UK sizing as well. So small, medium, large, a small is 8 to 10. You can work that out. There is a diagram within the pattern. I also want to keep this tutorial short and sweet, and I want to take you through the process, help you understand the construction. So I'm not going to teach you how to get the pattern from this to this. I've already cut out, stuck together the pages and picked my size and cut out my desired size. If you're interested in how that works, there is a full video on my website where you can figure out which file to print, how to stick it together, how to cut it, and how to basically get to the step that we are at right now. Also, this project has a tools and materials list, so you're welcome to read this. This is on the pattern. There is around 7 pages before all of the tiled pages, and they basically go through seam allowances, they go through all of the details that you're gonna need to know before creating a rough cut pattern. So a few good things to mention before we fully dive into this is there is a pattern glossary. Within this pattern glossary, it tells you all of the different icons that are on the sewing pattern. So for example, right here it says cut to mirrored. If you're unsure what that means, if you're unsure what cut on fold means, if you're unsure what all of these different fold line, pocket facing, all of these different phrases, read the pattern glossary, it will all make sense. The second thing and the final thing I want to mention is my sewing patterns are sewn at a 1/4 seam allowance unless stated different. When you're cutting the fabric and you're laying down your paper pieces on top of your fabric, don't add external seam allowance. It's already been added to your pattern. And that is it. That is everything we need before starting the process. I'm going to take you through the fly zipper, the side pockets, the actual attachment itself. Yeah, basically take you through the whole process of making a pair of trousers. But these have a feminine fit. They also can be made by men. This, I'm making a pair for my girlfriend, but you can make these if you're a man. It doesn't make a difference. I'm going to show you pleats. I'm going to show you a few other different things, hemming a pair of trousers. And yeah, by the end of this tutorial, you will have a completed pair of apron trousers. I'm going to cut out my fabric. Let's go. As I'm cutting out my front panels, so my 2 front panels here, I'm flipping, obviously, the fabric over and cutting 2, because obviously you need your left and your right side. But as I'm going, I'm just marking these joins at the top. You have 2 pleats on the front panel. You basically want to mark with a chalk pen exactly where they join up. So I'm going to mark that one, and then I'm also going to mark that one and do the same for the other side. So you can see you have 2 conjoin lines here. Well, you have 4, but 2 are going to connect together and then the other 2 are going to connect together too. You can see when you've cut the top of this fabric here, let me put the POV on, 4 join marks here. 2 of them are going to go together, and you can imagine I will just draw a little line all the way up to the middle. You can imagine that is your fold. These 2 dots align, and then that is what makes your pleat, and the same with this smaller pleat here, but I'm going to just show you again. And there you have your two front pleats. We're going to do the exact same for the other side, and then we're going to throw these to the side and carry on cutting out our fabric. Before I carry on, there's one thing that I didn't really mention. On the tools and materials list, which is this right here, it does have some fabric recommendations. I'm using 8 to 10 ounce denim. And then I've also decided to grab this stuff too. This is around 6 ounce denim, and I'm using this for the pocket bags and the actual apron wrap itself. The reason I'm using this is because it's a little bit lighter, so I think once you actually construct the final piece, I think this will work really nicely. So I'm sort of merging this 6 ounce denim with the normal 8 to 10 ounce denim. So I'm now at the stage where I've cut all of the fabric out and I'm ready to start stitching. I'm going to take you through the whole process on my industrial machine, but something that I always mention on these tutorials is that you don't need an industrial machine. You can do everything that I'm doing on my industrial with a domestic and a machine like this. This is all the pieces cut out. I've got my pocket that goes on the wrap apron part. I've added a little bit of seam allowance to this. Feel free to do that if you want the pockets to be a little bit bigger. I've got my fly shield and the fly cover. These two front facings that are for the inside pocket bag. I've got my waistband, which I did actually add a little bit more seam allowance to also just because I wanted my waistband to be a little bit bigger. You can do that too. I've got my front pieces with the pleats. I've got my back pieces. I've got the apron, the pocket bags, and the welted pockets, and we are pretty much ready to sew now. That is all the pieces that you should have got on the pattern itself when you downloaded it, and that is it translated into fabric. So just before we hop over to the machine, I'm going to get my iron. So that's something you will need for this tutorial, is your iron, and I'm basically just going to iron everything that needs to be ironed. So I'm going to iron the pleats, I'm going to iron the pocket hem, I'm going to iron the zip facing and cover, and I've already ironed the waistband. So yeah, we're going to iron them. We're also going to iron the welt pockets, and then we'll get to sewing. So, post jack here, I have done so many tutorials of these pockets. Essentially, you're just ironing the sides down, stitching it to the garment, stitching the flap to the garment upside down, and then top stitching or bar tacking the corners. It is super, super simple. I showcase it in loads of my other tutorials, so I didn't feel like I really need to explain that really. But anyway, this is me stitching the sides of the apron, and I'm getting ready to turn this inside out. And to be able to turn this inside out, I left a little section of the stitching which was free, used that as a little tunnel for me to turn it inside out, and then here is me pinning that hole back up. Back from post jack, I thought I'd explain that with me recording my voice afterwards, just because I thought it'd make it a little bit easier. So now we're at a stage where we have sewn all of the apron together. We've added the pocket, top stitched everything down, turned the lid of the pocket inside out, stitched that. We've basically just done it. And now we want to run a top stitch all the way around this apron, piece here, and you want to close up that little area just there that you had open, and then you're top stitching over that too, so the whole thing is seamless. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move that to the side, and we're going to pick it up later, add the eyelets, do the strings, but for now I'm going to move on to the front panels, and I'm going to show you how to attach a fly zip to a pair of trousers.
We've built during the Manhattan Project. I wouldn't guess if there's any more cameras here than in any other reasons why it's so hard for businesses to be.
I just finished top stitching all of that apron panel. I'm going to move this to the side for now because we don't need it. As I said, we will attach all the eyelets later, do all the strings for the apron. But for now, let's move back to the front panel here. I have the two front panels. I have the fly cover and the fly shield. We're going to tackle this in a second, but for now, the panels that we're going to want to focus on are these pocket panels here. I have two facings and I have two pocket bags. As I mentioned, I did the pocket bags out of the lighter 6-ounce denim, and then the main panels here, as you can see, I just ironed down my pleats, which they're looking really, really nice. I'm going to build out this pocket, and then we will add the fly shield, fly cover, and the zip, so you can make yourself a fly zipper. For now, I'm going to help you understand the pockets. You've got these two panels right here, which are two facings. You can just throw them to the side quickly. And these right here, if you've cut them mirrored, you should have two exact panels which reflect each other. These are your pocket bags that are going to go inside your side pockets of your front panels. This would attach, and then we're going to do some kind of folding mechanism. So it kind of looks something like this, but on the inside of your pair of trousers. So what we want to do is we want to grab the corresponding front panel. For example, that is this one right here. And we want to grab the pocket bag, which is the front facing. And as you can see, they line up perfectly. You want to stitch along here, and then we want to turn it inside out, and then top stitch all the way along it. But quickly before we want to add our pocket facing. Now would be the chance that if you wanted to add any external pockets to this, you would add all your external pockets to the facing, and then you would stitch it down. The way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to iron all this curve round to clean it up. I'm going to run a top stitch all the way along this facing, all the way up, all the way across, and then do this for the other pocket bag too. And then after that is finished, we will just do what I just said, where we top stitch it together, front facing, turn it inside out, do a fold mechanism, and then that will be your pocket finished. So this right here is what they're going to look like. They should match up perfectly. And as I said, I'm going to just take this one out, and remember which bit you're ironing. So I'm going to iron all this curve, and then that would be placed right here. And then, as I said, I'm just going to top stitch all the way around. Now you have top stitched these two facings down to the pocket bags. What we want to do is we want to take one of our front panels, just like this, and you want to find the one that corresponds with it front facing. So just this one here. If I flip this over, you can see that that lines up perfectly. What we're going to do is we're going to make a seam and sew all the way around this, and then we're going to flip it inside out, and we're going to do the same for both front panels, because obviously you want two pockets on your trousers. So once again, front facings, pocket bag and front panel, and we're just stitching around this pocket. We're going to turn it inside out, we're going to iron it, and then we're going to top stitch it down. This will create the pocket, and then when you fold it on the inside, which I'll show you in a minute, you'll be able to see that this creates the pocket, and then it's just stitching everything together. So you can choose to throw pins in this if you want. I will throw a few, and you're just lining this up. Grab a pin, and the one thing we really want to make sure of we're not doing here is stitching over the pleat, so you can unpin your pleat underneath just to make sure that you're not stitching over it. just like that, and you can see that it matches up perfectly. Again, watch out for that pleat again. You're just stitching around. I'm going to turn that inside out. Going to throw a pin in there. Going to throw a pin just at the end also, and you can see this will naturally start turning inside out. And now I'm going to top stitch all around what we've just turned inside out. Now what you can see is something looking a little bit like this. If we turn this over, it will start to make sense. You can see that the pocket is unfolded, and what we're going to do is we're just going to fold this over. You can start to see that it all aligns. What you can do is, just to see, you can throw a pin in here so it holds it secure. Then you can flip it over, and you can start to see that you have created your side pocket. So when you're looking at it front ways, you can see this little area right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip everything up, keep the pocket down so the front facings are still facing each other, and I'm going to stitch all the way around this. This will close up the pocket bag. Just like that, we've stitched round, and now if you flip this the normal way up, you can see that now the pocket bag is functional. And what we're going to do is we're just going to hit a little bar tack on this right here, and we're going to hit another bar tack on this, just to keep this secure in place. And I think that looks really, really, really clean. One optional thing you can do is, with this pocket bag, you can just run a bias tape seam to clean this up, or you can overlock this just to clean this up. But for video purpose sake, should I bias tape seam this? But I'm going to bar tack this now, and then I'm going to get the other pocket bag on the other side to the exact same stage. I'm going to clean this up. I've got a tool that specifically does that with my machine, and then we will move on to the next stage. Now we're going to tackle the fly zipper. So we've got these two panels here, which is the fly facing. It's like the cover, and then you have the shield. I'm going to show you how to construct this in POV. I'm going to explain as I go, and hopefully you're going to understand every part of the process. If you don't, rewind the video. I'm going to try and explain to the best of my ability. I think these are looking really, really nice. These pleats that we've added, they look super, super, super clean. I love how much like volume they bring to the pair of trousers. Let's throw you on my head. I switched my hats at the beginning of the video. That's because the camera connects to this sort of this little thing here, and it goes onto my head. It connects right onto the brim of the hat, and then I can keep you POV up here. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to switch you to POV. I'm going to show you how to add your own fly zipper to your pair of trousers. And you can keep coming back to this technique and this part of the video if you're making other pairs of trousers. And because I'm doing it in POV, you can sort of imagine yourself doing it. It'll be really helpful for making other pairs of trousers too. So yeah, let's jump you into POV. Right now we're going to be focusing on this area right here. We're essentially going to be attaching this cover on the inside of your pair of trousers, and this is basically going to have that classic sort of stitch all around it with your zip integrated inside, and then this panel basically folds in half, and then it goes behind the zipper, and it just acts as a little shield between your private parts, I guess, and zipping up the actual trousers. So yeah, this is like a handy little guard. It's going to go right just there, then the zipper is going to go on top, and then this cover is going to cover the zipper, and then this will go on top there, just like that. So when you open it, you'll be able to see the zipper. When you unzip the zipper, you'll be able to, see the fly guard. So right now we have 3 panels. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first fly shield, and I'm literally going to fold it in half, stitch all around it just to secure that fold, and then I'm going to come back and show you what to do. We basically want to move this panel, now we've stitched it together, to the side, and we're going to focus on the zip and this curved panel right here and this right side. Once I flip this over, you'll visually be able to see what's going on here. You have this panel here. You want the back of your cover to be facing the back of your front panel, just like that. And if you lay the zip down front facing, you'll see it should look something like this. Now if we move this slightly to the side, you'll see that this zipper, if we flip it over, will need to open so you can see the zip in there, just like that. What we're actually going to do is stitch all the way down this left side. So again, let me visually show you. This needs to be facing upwards from the inside, and then you want to get your zip and place it front down, just like that. And then what we're doing is we're sewing along this left side, but we're not doing it whilst it's attached to the front piece. So we can move that out to the side, and we're just going to stitch all the way down here. We're going to swap the sewing foot for this one, so I'm just going to swap it for this zipper foot right here. I've got this little quick release thing on my sewing machine there, so it's easy for me to swap in and out the feet. Now what you want to do is, again, we're lining it up just maybe like 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of this panel here. And the reason we're doing so is because you're going to top stitch this side part down, and it will make sure the zip lines up. So I'm going to start about halfway down, and I'm going to stitch this zipper into the fabric. Now what you can do is you can turn around, stitch all the way down again. When you get to about halfway, you can pull the zipper head through, just to make it easier for you to carry on your stitches. And it should look something along the lines of that right there. So now we're going to take this back over, and again, we're going to imagine that it's going to go right there. And this is going to be where your zipper opens. So how are we going to attach it to the side of your front panel? What we're going to do is we're going to do the front facings. So we're going to turn them over so they're the right way facing upwards, and we're going to move the zipper out the way, and we're just going to stitch all the way, front facings, remember, all the way up this line. We're going to stitch all the way up here with a 1/4 seam allowance. Once you've done this, it should look something a little bit like this. And what we want to do, we have it naturally sitting like this. We just want to turn it inside out. So the zipper is actually facing up now from the inside. And you can throw a few pins along this to make it easier for you. So it should look something a lot like this now. And you can see that when you lift that panel up, the zip is being revealed below. Now what I'm going to do is make sure the zipper is out the way again, and we're just going to stitch all the way up this line. So now you can really start to see that that zipper will work once we've attached these other 2 panels here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make that classic stitch which holds this shut. So we're just going to stitch all the way down here and around, and just close up this right here. If you're like me and you kind of have too long of a zip for the zip flyer, then you can just stitch all the way to where your stitch vertical line is. We basically want to free up this panel here so it's not sewn down. We don't want to sew down this zipper. So you want to stitch all the way down, get to that stitch mark there, then you can just flip this out and just stitch along. We just don't want this taping of the zip to be sewn down anywhere on this panel. So right now you can see that if we stitch over this taping, it will just stitch it right down. So we're going to pull this out the way, and we're just going to carry on our stitch. So now you can see that we have moved the tape out the way, and we've stitched all the way around. And if you flip this the other way, you'll see that this right here is your cover stitch. Just add another stitch next to it, this also helps secure this down even more. And again, I've left this edge raw, but you would overlock this before. If you have an overlocker, you'd overlock all your raw edges down. But I don't have one, mine is over there and it is broken. So right now, I'm just gonna clean up that stitch and add one next to it. Remember, if your fly zipper is slightly too big, like mine, you're gonna get to the end, and if I was to keep sewing, I would hit this little metal part inside, which is at the bottom of the zipper, because my fly zipper is slightly too long for this fly. What you can do is you could account this before sewing and actually make the cover a little bit longer, but I haven't done that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna finish my stitching there. I'm just gonna flip that over and carry on that stitch right there. If you have the perfect size zipper for this project, then this won't happen. I just only had this size zipper available to use. I was just connecting this all up, and like I said, you just make sure you don't want to sew down this taping side of the zip. So yours might look a little bit cleaner than mine, but I think that looks really nice regardless. Now what you can do, I undid my pleat, so you can fold that pleat back over. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw a pin in there, and I'm just going to stitch it shut. You can take the pin out. You can see right there, we're halfway there, and this is looking super clean. So now what we want to do is we want to get our shield, and we're just going to place that underneath the zip. And then again, we're going to switch sewing foots, and we're going to sew all the way down this left taping now with our zipper foot. And when you open this zip, you can see that that's what it will look like on the inside. So from the inside, that's what it's going to look like. And then if you flatten it down, once you've added your stitching, it will look like that. Halfway along, your zip is going to get in the way, so you just want to lift your presser foot up, zip through, and then carry on stitching. You can see that that is now attached on the inside, looking really clean. And you can clean up this bottom bit by doing a fold before, but I left it raw. Now we have stitched all of this down, I just wanted to show you one little amendment that I wanted to make myself. When I stitched this shield together, I didn't clean up this bottom part. I should have, I didn't, I kind of forgot. So what you want to do is you want to unpick all of this stitching and a little bit further up. Just here, you can see where I've added stitching all the way around this corner. It looked like that, but I just unpicked it. And then I'm going to fold this inwards on itself, just inwards, like that. And that looks perfect, see? And now I'm going to run a stitch all the way down, and this just cleans up any sort of like loose edges. So now I can stitch this from the inside, and then everything will look super clean. And just like that, that looks super clean now. And again, if you were to overlock this inside, it would look even more cleaner. If you were to overlock this raw edge here, it would also look clean. My overlock is broken, so we move on. This is pretty much nearly together. The hardest part, I think, is attaching this bottom bit, but that is not even that hard. So what we're gonna do is we know that this part here has got to connect up to the zipper. And if we just stitch it like that, there's going to be a raw edge along the edge. So what we're going to do is we're just going to flip it front facing, and we know that front facing, if we stitch down this line, turn this inside out, that should look really clean. So again, you want to make sure you're lining up the top. Again, your zipper is definitely going to get in the way at the end, so halfway along, just going to put our needle into our fabric, lift the presser foot, move the zip down, then we can sort of separate this, get a little bit more space. We can finish that stitch up the top. And now you can zip this back up. You can see that it's starting to take place. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a top stitch all the way down this folded edge. This just cleans it up a little bit. I'm going to pull the zipper down so it's not in the way. I'm going to stitch along. Pull the press foot up, put the needle in the thread, move the zipper head a little bit further up. Hit a little back and forth stitch at the bottom, and you only want to go as far down as your stitch is. I'll show you why in a second. Snip your excess threads. So now we have a functional zipper, fly zipper that is working. So now what we're going to do is we are just left with these two parts here. So you want to get your iron, and you want to iron this following that fold that you've already made because you did the top stitch on the cover. So I'm going to follow this fold all the way down and just carry on folding it round. I'm going to iron it down to make it secure. And then what I'm going to do here is you can see that this is naturally folding the other way because obviously you've just done the top stitch on the other side too. So for this side, the side which you've literally just stitched a top stitch on, I'm just going to snip. So now that sort of breaks that flow of fold. And I'm going to show you a cool technique. It is a flat felled seam. I'm going to do it just to secure this crotch area. Let me show you. So again, iron this down. And this is now ironed down on the side of your zip cover. And then because you've just snipped and broke that sort of fold that was happening there, what you can do is you can just connect this all up. You want to place the side that hasn't been ironed, the side where you cut, you want to just place that right under this ironed piece here. So right under the ironed piece, and then you want to fold it over. And then you want to fold it over once more. So you should have something looking. And pins are your best friend here, so once you do the double fold, throw a pin into that. And then you want to just work your way up, where you want to make sure that the side that isn't ironed down is underneath the ironed side, and then fold it over again. You want to put your hand underneath and connect it all up. Go throw a pin in there. You can kind of feel that the 3 layers are making a flat felled seam, and you can check the other side. I've missed a bit there. And like I said, pins are your best friend here, so you can really throw a few pins in here to make sure it's secure. What we're doing is we're creating a manual flat felled seam. You can see once you've done that, you can see it should have a really clean inside where there is no raw edge. And then there's a really clean outside too. I'm going to slowly run a stitch all the way up here. And then what I'm going to do when I get to this top bit is I'm just going to keep the stitch going, and then I'm just going to back and forth stitch right where I've ended this top stitch here. What you can do is you can also just do another stitch next to it to make sure it is fully secure. And there we have it. You've just created a really clean flat felled seam with your fly zipper that is perfectly in place. So I'm loving this contrasting yellow stitching with the pleats, the fly zipper. Yeah, that is exactly how you do a fly zipper. And I just want to say that a lot of people do their fly zippers a little bit differently. That is my way of doing it. It just creates a really nice flat felled seam underneath the fly zipper, which is super nice. If you have another way of doing it, or you have another tutorial that you go back to and normally use that. It does the same thing. You've got all the same component. If you're a little bit confused about what I just did, replay the video over and over again. And you'll slowly figure out how to do it. So now we've just completed the front of the trousers, and I think they look super, super, super nice. The pleats are amazing. The quality of this denim is really nice actually too. It isn't salvage or anything, but I managed to find some really nice stuff in my local fabric shop, which is amazing. I'm gonna move on to the back of the trousers now. We've got 4 darts to tackle and then 1 welted pocket. I'm not going to actually show you how to do the welted pocket. I have a complete tutorial here to show you how to make the welted pocket. I don't want to sort of throw you away from the video and then get you to come back, but I think if I was to add it to this tutorial, it would be a little bit too long. So I'm going to place a link in the description, or you can go onto the channel, navigate to the welted pocket tutorial. Watch that. If you want to add a welted pocket to the back of the trousers and you feel confident enough, then go and do it, and then come back to this video. But for now, let me show you the dart, and then we will get to the welted pocket. I'll showcase that finished, and then we'll move on. We've not got too much to do. We're just going to figure out the inside of the trousers, attach the side seams, and then do the waistband, then do the eyelets on the apron, and then we're pretty much finished. So yeah, let's tackle the back. Your back panel should look exactly like this. This should have their cutout darts, which we did at the beginning of the tutorial. If you haven't done that yet, then use the paper reference pattern and just cut out exactly where your desired darts are. And what we're going to do, if you watched the previous hoodie tutorial, we did darts on the hood. If you know how to do that, we're just doing the same with these where we're sewing them up. If you didn't, we're just folding these darts in and stitching them front facing. So we're just going to fold that in, stitch it front facing, and that should create a little bit of volume below, which is what we want because these trousers have a bit more of a female cut. I didn't add a yoke to the back pieces, so we want to add a little bit more volume to them. So POV again, I'll switch back to normal camera after this, but essentially, as you can see these darts right here, if we add a welted pocket underneath, it's probably going to be easier for us to do the welted pocket first and then do the darts afterwards, because otherwise you're going to be adding the volume and then it's going to be awkward to do the welted pocket. I'm going to show you the welted pocket process. I'm not going to talk about it. Maybe I'll say a few words in post whilst the video is going through. I'm just going to show you it in POV, and you can either copy me, but it's probably going to be too fast, so I recommend going over to the welted pocket video. So you have all the different markings for the different welted pockets depending on the sizes. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the one corresponding to our size, just this one right here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this on my denim just underneath. So I'm going to mark that's one side, and then I'm going to do the same here. And personally, I'm only going to do one welted pocket here because I don't want to do one on the other side too. I think it'd be nicer if I keep it looking clean. I'm not going to explain the process of this welted pocket. If you want to go and figure it out, check this video out. So now you've just done your darts. As you can see, I just did a tiny little top stitch on the top of the darts just to make it look kind of cool. It's just a decorative thing. I've just finished my welted pocket as well. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the other side where we just clean up the darts. I'm going to do a little top stitch over them again. And then we're going to connect these two back panels together. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to sew them together front facings, turn them outside in so they're normal way, and then we're just going to run a top stitch all the way down. I was going to do a flat felled seam on this, but the pattern doesn't allow it because I didn't think of that when we were creating it. Pretty much just do a normal seam and then top stitch down, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now we've just finished stitching all the darts, and we're going to flip one of these panels over, and then we're just going to sew all the way down, and then again flip it outside in, top stitch all the way down. We're going to focus specifically on this middle seam right here, and the same middle seam on the front too. What we're going to do is we're going to just flip the back panel round so we can, see what we're doing with this middle seam at the bottom. Then we're going to grab our front panel, flip it so it's front facing, and you want to grab both of these seams and you just want to match them up front facing. Again, this is front facing, match both the seams up. What we're going to do is we're going to work our way slowly down this inseam, pinning, and these bottom bits should match up perfectly right there. We're going to do the same with the other side. We're going to stitch all the way around this inseam and then top stitch it. We have the whole inseam pinned. I'm just going to run a 1/4 seam allowance stitch all the way down. Now we're going to have something that looks a little bit like this. So when you turn it underneath itself, you'll see that this basically is sewing the inseam together. What we're going to do is we're basically going to get this top stitch to be facing inwards to the back panel, so this back panel here, and then we're going to stitch all the way down and top stitch this inseam down. You could do a flat felled seam on the inside of this. You can add a little bit more at the beginning, but this is a level 3 pattern and I'm kind of just trying to get people to finish their garments. So for this sake, I'm going to do a normal seam and then a top stitch all the way down. You should have something that looks a little bit like this now, where you've top stitched down that inseam. What you want to do is you want to flip the back panel up and outwards, front facing again, and then that is pretty much your pair of trousers there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to connect up this side seam from the corners, and we're going to go all the way down to the bottom, and we're going to connect that up, sew that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch it again, and you can either top stitch all the way down to the bottom just like we did with the inseam, or what I'm going to do, because I'm going to leave a little bit of bagginess, I'm going to just top stitch just to around 1/3 of a way down the trousers. I just kind of like it when it's like that. I don't think you need to top stitch all the way down. Hit it with an iron after anyway and it will do the same thing. I don't really think you need to put pins in your garment for the outseam, as long as you're being careful, knowing that you're doing a 1/4 seam allowance. You don't really need pins. I've just turned these inside out and they look insane. Look at this. This is what the back is looking like with all the darts, and then the front with the pleats. Well, let me just connect you to the thing. Proper baggy sort of fit. Exactly what I was looking for. The pleats are so nice. The pockets work perfectly. Yeah, let's attach the waistband. When I was ironing my waistband earlier, what I did was I basically, one end of my waistband, I just folded it in like that, and then I folded it over, but I left a little gap, and this little gap means that one side is longer than the other. And I'm going to show you exactly why that is in a second. So what you've got right here is obviously your raw edge. What we're going to do is we're going to sew the smaller side of the waistband front facing to the inside cover, and we're going to sew this all the way around the garment, just front facings. And then what that's basically going to do is when that's sewn in, you can flip it over, and then you'll have a lot of excess fabric on this side, which then you're going to tuck under just like that, so it will look something like this on that side. And then you pin, and then you want to stitch. Again, what we're doing is we're sewing the front facing down to the inside, not the outside first. We're not doing the outside. We're starting on the inside of the zip. We're going to sew the front facing. We're going to sew it all the way around, and you make sure that you're doing it on the small side, and do it on the side where you folded in too. Right now we're going to sew this waistband on there, and then when we again flip it over, I'll show you how to do that after. You can take it from the inside, remember front facings. This bit is already turned, and then we're just going to sew just like that. We have attached the waistband onto the pair of trousers. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to go round with the iron and flatten down this seam that we have just sewn. So now you can see the longer side is facing upwards, and now when we naturally fold it over again, you can see this is slowly making a waistband. So now to clean this up, what we're going to do is we are just going to fold this under, but we're just going to match it just below this yellow stitch line here. So just below, and then again pins are super helpful here. We're going to go around the whole pair of trousers. You can see that if you fold this and put it right on that yellow line, like we've just shown, when you throw the pin in and then turn it round, you can see that it perfectly lines up along the line of your waistband. This is what we're going to stitch across once we've done this all the way around, and then it should make a really clean . You just saw me iron the out seam, which essentially just makes it a little bit more cleaner. It means you don't really have to top stitch it. I've just dropped my iron. I just dropped my iron on the carpet, so I'm not going to use that to iron any part of this garment again, but luckily we don't really need it. So you've got a raw edge here. Once you've turned your trousers back outside in, the right way up. And we're pretty much nearly done, and these trousers actually look incredible on their own. I guess you can wear them with or without the apron, but anyway, we'll get to that. What I've done is I've just folded fabric over once and then folded it over again and then added a pin. Let me show you. So if I take this pin out, it's just folded over once and then folded over again. You can make this as big as small as you like. Then we're just going to run a really clean equal stitch all the way along and around this. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the other side. These are sick. These are so sick. And that is pretty much, once you've hemmed the bottom of them trousers, that is pretty much the whole pair of trousers finished. The only thing that you can do now, and you should do, is add a button. I'm just gonna make my buttonhole and then I'm gonna add my button, which is just a hammer-on one. So it's not too complex to figure out. And then once that is done, we will start adding the eyelets. The thing is, I'm not entirely sure if I do actually have enough eyelets to be able to do this. So I'm going to sort of assess what I've got, see what I can do, and then if I do have enough eyelets, that's perfect, but if not, I'll have to figure out another way to do it. I use the bigger eyelets, so I can get the denim sort of string through. We've got to build the denim string. I have a version of it here, but I'm going to show you how to make it in a second. I've got a little tool. But there's multiple ways of doing this. So we're going to build the string, we're going to do the eyelets, and I'm just going to add a button to the trousers so we can finish off the trousers. As I mentioned, this pair of trousers, this whole apron sort of set that I'm doing is a pattern that I'm selling. So I'm making it for my girlfriend who's sat over there. Her name is Sam. Say hello, Sam. They're like a size 8 to 10, so it should fit her really nicely. They are technically unisex, so you just cut a higher size and it will just have that cut to it, but yeah. Anyway, let's do the button and then we'll get to finishing these pair of trousers. Earlier I was talking about potentially not having the right tools to be able to do the eyelets. However, I have found the perfect amount and I don't have any more, so it was super lucky. I have these two dies here, this one for cutting the fabric and this one for installing the eyelets. And then I have 6 eyelets. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 on one side, and then on the other I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Sort of space them out evenly, and then these are quite big eyelets, so this is what the sort of denim string is going to run through. I'm going to install the eyelets first, and then I'm going to make the denim string, because I'm not entirely sure how I'm actually going to do it. Because my iron has got all of this rubbish from the carpet on now, and I'm not too sure how to tackle that really, but we'll leave that for now. I'm going to install the eyelets, and then we're going to do the denim string another way. We want to space these out evenly, so when you actually get to wearing this, it's going to feel nice. If they're not spaced out evenly, it might cause you a little bit of an issue. But they don't need to be perfect, just kind of like, you know, not one eyelet all the way down there, another one all the way up here. So I'm going to grab my chalk pen, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark the first one by eye, which is going to go up there. And then let's say the second one can just go halfway down. To be straight up with you guys, my iron is absolutely messed up. So I am doing these denim strings a different way, and probably not the way I would show you if I had an iron. So I'm just going to stitch down this and just fold it in 2 ways. So I'm folding it in from the right, and then I'm folding it in again from the left. It's going to fray a little bit, but again, I would do this another way. You could use anything. You could use paracord, you could use any type of string to attach this apron to the trousers. There's no right or wrong way to do this, so this is kind of just a makeshift way that I'm doing because my iron broke. That is not bad at all, to be honest. That'll work perfectly for what we're doing. That is everything finished. I've done my denim strings and I've checked that they fit through the eyelets, and they do, as you can see there. I have the apron finished, the trousers fully finished, and yeah, they are for my girlfriend, as I said, who is sat over there, Samuel. And yeah, she's going to try them on now. I'm going to do some B-roll shots of her wearing the trousers. And then, yeah, your trousers are now completed, your apron Kumo Wrap Pants. So let's see what they look like. And there we have it. That is the finished Kumo Wrap Pants. I am gassed with them. Sam, do you very much like them?
I would love.
There we have it. If you want to make yours yourself, as I mentioned, you can buy this on my website for $19.99. Actually, not $19.99. It is $15.95. I've done a discount because I've just hit 200,000 followers on Instagram. So all my patterns are $15.95 on the website. And on top of that, check this code out right here. It will give you 30% off, and there is 5 uses. So I am absolutely incredibly happy with them. I've never really made like something like that, so it's very interesting for me. But building a pattern out with Gio, my co-designer, and just it being exactly what we expected it to be, if not even better, I'm very happy with them. So yeah. Stick around. If you're interested in more level 3 patterns, then you can find them on my website. Again, this pattern is on the website too. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you smashed out your version too. If you're interested in sending me what you made, drop me a message on Instagram, take a photo, I'll use it for content. I will happily even gift you a new pattern if you send me your complete Kumo Wrap Pants. So yeah, lots of love. I'll catch you in the next video. See you in a bit.